I would probably guess that most people who have tuned in to this seminar, this little talk, are really thinking of how they can change certain aspects of their personality. Like, none of us want to be angry, irritable, in a mood when we wake up in the morning, one day one mood, another day another mood. There's so many different aspects that we would like to improve in our personality. Actually, all of the kind of habits that we have, or the traits, the personality traits that we have acquired, we do have original, intrinsic personality traits of love and peace and happiness, but the acquired traits of being fearful or defensive or aloof, controlling, all of these acquired traits basically are because we're just trying to survive. As we say in the Brahma Kumaris, I am a spiritual being having a human experience. Just think about that. I'm not a human being that is a little bit curious about spirituality. I am a spiritual being, a soul, the essence, the life force, and I'm having a human experience, whether I like it or not. And we all have to kind of play the cards that we're dealt. And we do develop a lot of survival tactics to cope with, not getting what we perhaps need or want in our life. For example, if I was brought up and I didn't have a loving environment, every being thrives in love. We need love. It's a basic human spiritual need. And if I'm not getting love in my life, I just say, I don't need love. And I put up a barrier and I just pretend I don't need it. And I get tough. It's not who I am. It's not who anyone is. Scratch below the surface of someone like that, and you'll see what they call the inner child, the being that really is much more in touch with who they really are than what we show on the surface, the masks that we talk about. And just recently I was listening to a friend who's a very top journalist working in a very, big company. And, it's so interesting because he was described by someone as love. And I find that intriguing because, no offense to any journalists out there, but I often find that journalists become a little bit cynical, maybe a bit negative, a little, defensive. All of these traits tend to creep in. And I thought, how can he stay so innocent? I would describe him as very innocent. And he was sharing that they did a workshop on respect, and they were all told they need to develop respect. And he said, I couldn't cope in my environment giving respect to everyone, because a little bit of ego is often in that environment as well. So he said, just respect wouldn't work for me. But when I could love, I could just stay beyond everything because I am love. And if I just keep to who I am, not reacting to anyone else, not trying to manipulate or play games in any way, I'm just who I am, and I am love. And that is actually, as I understood it, his survival. He has survived 30, 40 years in the media and come out a being of love and very innocent and very, very humorous and light by holding on to his intrinsic nature. So this is very wonderful. I mean, since listening to him, I was just thinking, that's what we need to do. We need to activate our intrinsic nature of peace, of love, of inner power, wisdom, in order to survive and not default to those survival techniques that actually work against us, and they damage our relationships. They take us away from who we are. Like, for example, I was living in Hong Kong for many years, and I would ask people, do you trust? And most people would say, like, no. I mean, do you? It was just like nobody thought trust was a good idea. Now, just think, it's a pretty business-focused world in Hong Kong. And, you know, when I was there in the early 80s, they'd just come out of that whole, you know, cultural revolution experience. Trust wasn't a very activated quality. And, you know, it was really interesting exploring trust in different cultures, just out of interest. In Australia, I find, and from talking to people, it's still quite alive. I don't know how alive now, but at least 20 years ago when I did my little survey it was. But, you know, I decided for myself, because living there was also a little challenging because I didn't feel trusted, and I'm quite a trusting person, and I felt kind of, oh, I've lived here so long and I don't feel trusted. Yep. And I just decided I'm going to trust unconditionally. And I thought, wow, that's even harder than loving unconditionally. It's pretty out there. And who should walk into my life, into our center to be exact, was someone who was a pathological liar. It was quite a journey. Who was not just a pathological liar, but had AIDS in the early days when we didn't understand it. A lot of people were fearful. It was such a huge journey. But just deciding that I'm not going to lose my trust. Otherwise, I have to make a lot of work, do a lot of work to get it back again. So I'm going to hold on to this trust, model trust, because if trust is kind of a bit devoid or crushed in this environment, it has to be held, it has to be modeled. And so I took on that journey of unconditional trust. And I learned a great deal. And the biggest thing I learned was from the head of our organization, Dadi Prakashmani, at the time. I said, you know, it's really hard trusting people. She said, you can trust most people 95%. And I thought, that's realistic. I don't want anyone to trust me 100%. I don't think I'm 100% trustworthy. I don't want you to trust me 100%. But if we can just, you know, think about that most people can be trusted 95%, we can start working on these qualities in a much more practical and useful way and not let them go.